So we're looking at some Fort Knox safes today. One of the big questions, I guess, that people ask is what makes the difference between a Fort Knox safe and some of the other popular safes on the market. If you take a close look at the Fort Knox products, you can definitely see where you're getting what you're paying for, and you're getting a lot more value than you do with some of the other major manufacturers out there. Yeah, they're 100% made in America. Every single piece from their raw steel is made in America. To all the manufacturing is done right in Utah on the safes. So that's one of the big things right off the bat. Another thing that adds value to it is they have a full lifetime warranty. No questions asked if somebody attempts to break into it. If it's damaged in a fire, they'll always replace the safe, and they'll help you get into the safe as well. For instance, during Hurricane Katrina, they had, I don't know, about 24 or so safes that they just up and replaced due to the flood damages. But basically, this is the protector model. So it's kind of one of the low to mid-end safes in the Fort Knox line. The big things that you're getting here, where most of the other manufacturers, they use a composite type door, which is basically a piece of sheetrock that's wrapped in like a 12 gauge steel, and then that's all there is to it. It's just a piece of sheetrock wrapped in a 12 gauge steel with no plate or anything here, and then it goes right into the door section here. So it doesn't really give you a real rigid, thick door, and if you want to pry attack or anything like that, it makes it easier to get into. Where this door, basically on this, they use a piece of 1/4 inch steel plate or 3/8 inch steel plate, depending on the model of the safe. So this is basically a section piece of that door. So this is a huge thick piece of steel plate back here, and then it's wrapped in 10 gauge body steel with two layers of fireboard in between. And then this is the 10 gauge steel wrapped around it and joined with this 1/4 inch or 3/8 inch steel plate on this version here. So that's one of the big things that really sets it apart. That's their Fort Knox's reinforced fire door. That makes a huge difference as opposed when you see this safe closed up. As far as getting any tools in there and prying on it or anything, you have this huge 10 gauge steel wrapped around it, which is like 1/8 of an inch heavy steel, and then that 3/8 inch plate. Now they also have, on this particular version, we have active bolts all the way around on the front, the back, the top, and the bottom. Some of the other models even have corner bolts that are activated out of the corners here like that. So another piece of the way that they manufacture the Fort Knox safes that sets it apart. I don't have this door taken off, but there's rack and pinion door, the gear system that operates all the bolts. Fort Knox, to the best of my knowledge, is the only safe manufacturer that shows you what the inside of the door looks like, all the processes that go into, the gears and everything that operate these bolts. So they have a very, very reliable system. They also have relockers built into that and different drill plates in there to protect the gear work in the safe. Couple other neat features. This particular version, they also use this 10 gauge steel for the body, throughout the body. They also have safes where you have a reinforced liner in there, so you get 10 gauge steel, then you get fire protection, and then you get another layer of 10 gauge steel or even up to stainless steel. So quite a bit heavier duty than most of the other manufacturers' bodies. They have a full modular interior. The fireboard is it's not glued into the safe like most other manufacturer safes, where they just take the sheetrock and then they glue it into the safe. Fort Knox takes fireboard, and they actually have a stud mechanism. So it's actually, there's little studs welded into the body of the safe. They go through and connect this in here. So there's actually an air gap between the steel and the fireboard, which helps gives you a layer of air to prevent the heat from getting in there. And a lot of companies' safes that the sheetrock is just glued in. As soon as it heats up, that glue will start to melt because the glue is directly to the metal body of the safe. And then the interior starts to fall apart. And what happens when it starts to move around, then your fire protection is compromised. It's not. So basically the Fort Knox gives you a layer of steel, then an air pocket, and then your layer of fire protection. So it helps use that air to keep the contents cool inside. Another thing that's nice about the door that goes with that fire protection is that you have your fireboard outside on the safe here. So imagine if this is closed and fire heat is starting to get to it, then it has that layer of protection right out here by the door. If you're talking about a plate steel door, like some of the other models, it's just a piece of plate, and then you have your lock mechanism and everything, and then you have a piece of fireboard on the inside door right here. They put the fireboard. So that allows all that heat to penetrate all the way through all that metal and then right up against all of your stuff that's in the safe. And now you barely have your fire protection sitting here as opposed to sitting out front where it's needed. Another thing, their interiors are fully modular. These guides, I guess, for you to clip in your shelving system is all attached to that in that stud system, so it's not going to just pull out of the sheetrock. It's not just sheetrock screws into the sheetrock. It's all studded in there, so it's very strong. They also are flush on the bottom of the floor, which is just a little feature that when you're reaching in and grabbing nice wood stocks and stuff, when you pull them out, they're not going to nick the toe of the stock or anything down here. So just a little bit of thought that goes into that. They have also the fire seal. So as soon as this heats up to a certain temperature, this will seal and protect it like from moisture. So if the fire department's putting water on your house, it'll basically create a seal so that there's a minimum amount of smoke and soot that gets in and the water when they're spraying it. There's full modularity in this interior. So right now this is basically set up as a 20 gun interior, but you can take out the shelving and move it around and play with it and get it set up to exactly where you want it.
I was just say show all the different options. Like when you order it,
Oh,
you
on
have a
here?
zillion different options.
Okay.
Other states give you no options, right?
Yeah. All right. So, for instance, this is some of the different options. If you can see that on there. If you're going with a 26-inch wide safe, you get to choose from these different types of interiors. 31-inch wide, which is what we're looking at here. This particular interior here is this 20-gun interior. So with that, you get long guns on one side, shelves, and part long guns on the other side. But of course, you can pretty much get it set up anyhow, any way that you need it. And they're also very flexible. Fort Knox, being that it's 100% American made, and we're in good contact with the factory, we can basically custom make a safe to whatever needs you need. If you have a guitar collection or something else that needs to be stored differently and none of these options are going to work for you, we can work with them and get it made just the way that you want it to organize your equipment that you have, as well as any different color options or interiors or anything. We're pretty flexible.
Plywood.
It's kind of boring.